Am I live? Everybody's on. I'm hearable. Yes, I am. Well, good. I guess it's afternoon, everyone. This is Hedgie, and you are live with Cooking with Hedgepigs. It is Saturday. It is December. So we have Christmas lights across my screen. Another thing you will notice is the fact that we have a stream goal of $300 to upgrade the stream, and that will buy us um, a second camera. It will also buy us the stands to put them on and a microphone, so I'm not using a headset that uh, tries to work and sometimes fails. So if you can contribute, deeply, deeply appreciated. And if you can't, that's very understandable. It's not required. It's just something that would help. And that's where the money is going that I get on the stream. When you give me a subscription, when you give me bits, anything like that goes to upgrading my stream. Now, to start, I have a couple people to thank that have joined my stream community, my Pigloo. This is my coffee. um, they have joined since we had our last stream. First of all, Masquerade Gamer Girl has followed my channel, as has Aiden914, and I thank them very much for their follows. And TinaBug02 has subscribed at Tier 1, so thank you very much for the subscription. I hope you enjoy my streams as much as I enjoy yours. And thank you, Connor, the only deaf guy, for coming in to look at my new uh, Christmas ornaments that run across the top, the little lights. I'm trying not to go way overboard on Christmas, though I am a Christmas baby. I was born on the 19th, and I love all things Christmas, which is why my Christmas tree stays up year round. And I thank my husband for that, along with all of his work being my stream tech. Today we are cooking soup, and we are also going to make a Waldorf salad while the soup is cooking. The soup is it is a stuffed pepper soup. So if you like stuffed peppers, you'll probably like this soup. And as you see, we also have a Hedgepig bot now that has joined us. And in addition to my mod Connor, the only deaf guy, and my husband, Andrew Mantis. And if she joins us and is free to do so, I also have the Frumpy Grumpy, who is a wonderful streamer who does arts and crafts now. She occasionally forays into cooking. And the only deaf guy you can find, can you give him a shout out, honey? He is a young chef in England from uh, Cheltenham, England, and he has his own cafe there that he has in partnership. And you can catch him British times, which is pretty much opposite of us. And he's a wonderful chef, and their food is absolutely mouth-watering. We put a warning on everything that every stream he does, that viewing his stream will cause instant and prolonged hunger, and boy does it. So view responsibly, have a snack and a drink, or you will be getting up and getting a snack later. So I am going to start making the soup. I have got a big stock pot here. Well, it's actually a smaller stock pot and a little burned on the bottom, but that's because my Farberware has a cast iron plate and it gets very hot, and it also it can scorch it. Uh, Sorry, doing something with another computer screen. Um, so to start out, we are going to be browning and cooking about 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds of hamburger. That would be mince, and this is lean ground beef. So we take and we go kerflump, and in it goes. So I have got that in there now, and subtitles not working. Sorry about that. One of the new things we've got in there. And I really don't think you guys need to see hamburger browning, but I am going to chop it up a little bit first. This is kind of a one pot thing, which is always good when you're talking about kitchen cleanups. So I am doing my very best to use one pot that my husband has to clean up instead of this and a frying pan and a couple saucepans and whatever. This really is not a complicated soup. It's just not. So I've got the hamburger in here, and I am going to season that with some salt. And this is just a sea salt grinder. I'm very careful with salt because my mother can't have it. So there's some salt in there. And it's nice to season your meat because the broth will catch the seasonings from the meat, and the meat will be part of the seasoning. But if your meat is bland and boring, it's going to ruin your soup. So we have a little bit of pepper in there as well. And then I am going to go to my stream recipes. It requires... I don't think you ever got out the grape tomatoes, honey. I need a half a teaspoon of dried basil. And for this, I bring out my handy dandy teaspoon and measuring spoon set. So I need half a teaspoon. Now my old people can be very distracting. So I've got half a teaspoon of basil. And basil is a lovely herb. It has a slightly peppery, minty taste if you've never tried it by itself. And then I have got oregano, and it calls for a quarter teaspoon of oregano. So that is probably that one. Yep. I've got my quarter teaspoon of basil, a half teaspoon of basil, and a quarter teaspoon coming up of oregano. Oregano is very often used with tomato sauces. It makes tomatoes taste more tomatoey, basically, which is nice. It's often put into mixed herbs. And so there we go with the basil and oregano. And then I have got some parsley. So that calls for 2 tablespoons of dried parsley. And I have that up here, and that is about 1 tablespoon. And there's your 2nd tablespoon. I'm also going to add a little bit of sage to that just because I want to. So then this goes on our burner, and while that starts to brown, I'm going to get to work on the chopping and the dicing and the mincing. So I have got a lid on that nail. And where's my onion? There's my onion. So the next thing I should work on is onions and peppers. Was the light bad, honey? Okay. So, get out my handy dandy knife. And this is a sweet onion. I prefer them. Um, we live in a state that grows some of the best sweet onions in the world. So, why not? They have less bite. They have a slightly sweet to very sweet flavor. Um, the ones you can find in the grocery stores that are bagged are wonderful. They're called Walla Walla sweets. I don't know if they sell them out of the area. Um, I know that if they don't sell them in the area you're in, and you live in the United States at least, and you can probably get them in England and Europe as well, you can get Mayan sweets or you can get Vidalia onions. Um, any of the sweet onions will be very similar. I have a tendency to think that the sweet onions that are from Walla Walla are the best, but I know Southerners that swear by their Vidalias, so to each their own. If you don't have any of that available, a regular onion will do. Um, and I cut off both ends, which I don't usually do, because it helps hold the onion together to have that, have this end on. It helps keep your onion together when you're slicing it. But I didn't think about it, so I am just going to have to cut all the way through it and then hold onto the onion so it doesn't do that. And like I said, other people who are actually trained chefs are far more impressive with their slicing skills, in their speed and accuracy. And I don't make the claw, which is something that they teach them to keep their fingers out of the way to not cut off the ends. That would be very nice. Anybody that's coming in new, welcome in. Anybody that's already here and hasn't said hello, welcome in as well. I know cooking streams in particular are very popular for lurkers, and we love our lurkers too. If you like what you're seeing, if you like my shows you've seen in the past, please go ahead and hit that follow. It would be deeply appreciated, and everybody's welcome in. If you really like me and you want to help support the stream, you can hit follow, or you can hit the subscribe button. Again, not necessary. You don't ever have to do either one, but it helps me out if you do. So, and as I said, any money goes to the stream to make it better for you all, so that you can get another camera and see when I am working on the cutting board. You'd be able to see the cooking surface and possibly eventually actually something other than my hands. Who knows? Please don't cut my fingertips off. Well, I haven't yet, honey, so I'm thinking I probably won't going forward. This is a soup that kind of, it's economical because it makes a lot. It doesn't use expensive ingredients. I think the most expensive thing in it is the beef. And, you know, beef being beef, that's pretty much what it is. I'm going to check on my ground beef as it's cooking now. Put the ends of the onions into my little garbage bin here. And I'm going to, I can hear the sizzle of the beef, and I'm going to bring it forward here and shift it around a little bit because it is starting to brown on the bottom, which we do want it to do. Try not to end up with that on my lap. And it's just a matter of turning the beef. Now, as I said, this is lean ground beef. It's not chuck in this case. Wasn't available. So I am going to take and put my chopped up vegetables, which I will be adding in once the beef is browned, into a container. So I will put the top back on that and move my spatula out of the way and pick up my onions and put them into here. The next, you could use, I need to talk about bell peppers for a second. Now, bell peppers don't have any heat to them. They are just the pepper taste behind the other peppers without any heat. So they have negligible Scoville units, if anything. And a lot of people don't know that. What are you doing, honey? A lot of people don't know that although you see 4 different colors of bell peppers, they're all the same pepper. They start out their life as green, and that is the strongest of them for flavor and the least sweet. And then you go from that into the yellow pepper, and then the yellow pepper is a little sweeter, a little less strong than the green, and then it moves into orange. And the orange bell pepper is a little sweeter than the yellow and a little more mild. And then the last one is the red bell pepper, and that one is very sweet. It pairs very well with lots of kinds of cooking. It is a very good pepper for raw applications. If you're going to have some cut up vegetables, actually any one of these 3 would go very well for that. But if you're going to be serving, if you want to, for instance, hollow this out, you could fill it with tuna or chicken salad, and that would just be delicious. Now, we want to take, well, what have I got there? Pirate Ute, hey, how you doing? Welcome in. Oh, thank you for the subscription. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Pirate. I really appreciate that. Welcome into my stream. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you learn a little bit about cooking, or at least a recipe that you want to try. Now, that's a trick to basically both de-seed and de-rib your peppers, because when you cut them like this, it all stays in the middle. It's a nice, neat way of dealing with it. Okay. Much easier than cutting it in half or, trying to carve out all those little bits and pieces. Just doesn't work. So instead, I just make a box, and what you get has no seeds, has no ribs. They're all in here, as you can see. If you have any questions as we go along, Pirate, go ahead and ask them. I will try to remember to look up every now and then and answer any questions you have. This is my stuffed pepper soup that I'm making with ground beef and peppers and onions and tomatoes and rice. And then there's seasonings that go into it, and it tastes a lot like a actual stuffed bell pepper, which is possibly more popular in the past than it is now, but they are tasty little devils. Okay, so Now I am going to take and start cutting up my bell peppers. And you want to keep them, you don't want them to be really tiny. You do want to be able to identify what it is you're eating, so you're not going to mince this, you're not going to cut it very small. It's going to be a decent sized dice, and they will cook nicely so that they're tender and well done. So I just cut them, and it's probably a 3/4 inch dice. Um, you want to try to keep things in a similar size so they cook at the same amount of time. So when you have one piece of bell pepper that's done, they're all going to be done because they're the same size, the same thickness. If you have bigger and smaller pieces, you'll end up with some that are undercooked and some that are overcooked. Plus, it just looks nice. Let's be honest, it looks nice, and that's what they call knife skills when they talk about it on cooking shows. When they say that you have good knife skills, it's not just being able to cut the vegetables very quickly. It's able to cut them the same size so they cook at the same rate. It is not always cutting the tips of your fingers off. That would be an example of bad knife skills, honey. So that is the orange bell pepper. They're very juicy, by the way, so that's always a nice thing if you are looking to. You could even make these little boats and stuff them with various dips, and that's a lovely option as well when we get into the dips. Uh, Bell peppers will be included in that because they have a tendency to go very nicely, um, especially with cheese dips. The cheese balls that I made last stream would have gone very well with uh, these peppers as a method of getting the dip into your mouth, which, that's basically the goal of having something like that. So especially if you're trying to cut carbs, using a vegetable instead of a cracker or piece of toasted bread is probably a good option. Okay, almost done with the red pepper. Later on in stream, I'll be making a Waldorf salad while the soup cooks. Um, it's going to take 20 minutes to cook the raw rice I'm putting in there. And the starch from the rice will be in the broth, and it will also thicken that broth slightly. So that's a secondary use for cooking the rice in that. If you don't want to cook the rice in your soup, if you idea of having the rice starch in it bugs you for some reason, um, use a rice steamer and cook the rice and add that in last. Um, that's always an option as well. You could also use minute rice. Throw it in there when it's boiling, put the lid on it for 5 minutes, and you'll have rice. That's kind of a highly processed rice. It's been cooked and then it's dried, and all you're really doing is rehydrating it, and it's kind of thrashed, really. It's kind of broken on the ends, and that's because it's already been cooked. It's also the type of rice it is, which is a long grain white, which is very popular in the United States and not so much in other countries. Everybody has their favorite. Indian food tends to use basmati rice, which is very long, and the ends are kind of curly and split, and it looks fluffy. It has a definite difference in texture. It has a difference in flavor. Then you have the jasmine rice, which is used in a lot of Asian cooking. Um, and that has a distinctly perfumey taste to it. It's kind of an acquired taste and not one I'm fond of, but that's me. Everybody has their own thoughts on things like that. I am looking now for my paper towels. All right, I'm gonna wipe this down because cutting up the peppers has been very juice inspiring on my board. So I am going to take this off, and as you can see, it's turned mostly brown, although the inside meat is not done yet. I want to make sure that it is. So even if I did leave it pink in the middle, adding the broth to it that I'm going to be adding and then boiling it, that would in fact cook it so it was done by the time the rest of the soup is done. But I would prefer to start it off not being pink. It's just me. Note to self, the next thing to get is a spoon rest. Okay, so we've got this done. And the next thing we're going to use is little grape tomatoes. They are you see these a lot in salads. They are a sweeter tomato. They are kind of like a cherry tomato, which just carries more sugar than the regular tomato. And they are delicious. I'm just going to cut these in half and add them in. And they're different from a cherry tomato in that they're small and oblong, kind of like the difference between a plum tomato and a hothouse or a beefsteak or your general sandwich tomatoes. You can now find these little grape tomatoes everywhere in your grocery stores. If you can't find them, you can always get cherry tomatoes or just cut up a plum tomato in a dice. That works too. These are just about the size that I want them to be, and they have the flavor profile I want them to have, which is a slightly sweeter profile than a regular tomato, and it will help offshoot, boy, that guy's a little one. It will help offshoot the taste of the peppers. So when you're looking at flavor combinations, you want to combine the different flavors together. You also want to add different textures to things. So things that are all one texture are kind of boring. They may taste good, but after a while your palate just kind of gets bored of all one texture. I mean, you're not going to eat a giant bowl of a smooth pudding or jello, for instance, not because they're not good, but because after a while it's just a matter of more and your palate gets bored. So that's part of the goal in creating more interest in your food by using different textures as well as different flavors. And of course colors, because don't forget we eat with more than just one sense. We have more than the sense of taste. We have the sense of touch when you are either dealing with a finger food or you have, woohoo, we do have a spoon rest. Thank you very much, Andrew. And so you have the sense of taste, you have the sense of touch, you use sight. And that is definitely, if something doesn't look good, you're probably not going to want to try it. And then you have the sense of smell. It has to smell good. And I encourage you to smell your foods before you eat them or use them. For instance, smell your meat. Make sure it doesn't smell off. It should have a slightly, if it's raw meat, and it probably is going to be, honestly, you're going to start out with um, a smell that is slightly metallic from the blood. So it has a kind of coppery, irony smell, but it isn't going to have any really objectionable smells. It's not going to smell sweet. It's not going to smell uh, rotting or foul. It shouldn't have any kind of discoloration to the meat. A little bit of oxidization on the outside, which turns the meat a little gray. That happens with the length of time after they grind the meat. It just oxidizes a little bit in the air. That's fine, but you don't want it to be green or have any kind of a sheen to it. That generally means rot is setting in, so that's a bad choice at that point. Um, Definitely never cook with that. Now, if you've got meat that's been sitting in its own blood for a while, the blood may smell bad, uh, a little strong, and be kind of dark. Rinse the meat off, and usually that flavor or smell is gone with the uh, blood you've washed away, and you'll have that clean meat smell to it again. If you don't and your meat continues to smell like that, it's a little iffy. You might want to not do that. Fresh ingredients are always the best. So, yeah, alrighty. And this is going to be about equivalent. Woohoo! He almost got away. It's going to be the equivalent of about 2 cups of cut up tomatoes. A little bit more or less won't really hurt you. So I have the onions, the peppers, and the tomato cut up and waiting to be ready to add to our stock pot here, which is out of view, at least for now. The cutting board will come back when it is time, and that will be when I start making the Waldorf salad, which is made of apples and grapes, red seedless. It will also have walnuts in it, and then it's got a little salt and pepper, a little bit of lemon, and it is also having mayonnaise and yogurt mixed to make the creamy dressing. All right, so we've got our vegetables here. I am going to pull carefully the pot forward so that you can see it. And at this point, yes, I curl my fingers out of the way so that what we have is not my fingers being burned on my handy dandy Farberware hot plate. It says warning, hot surface on it. And it means it. Like I said, these are actually cast iron plates. So it takes a little bit to get them heated up, but once they're heated up, whoo boy. I will try to center this a little bit better. Move things from one side to the other. And it may be so close to the camera you can't really see well, but I'll give it a shot. Get my coffee cup out of the way, and I will hydrate. As my husband would said, coffee. I might mispronounce this. Thank you very much for the follow. Goji George. In any case, welcome in and thank you for the follow. We all appreciate that. I hope you enjoy my cooking. Today we are making stuffed pepper soup which I am in the process of making and to get it combined. And it's going to cook down for a little bit. Now, my memories that are associated with this soup are not so much the soup itself. What comes along with this soup is memories of my childhood, where my mother would make stuffed green peppers, which honestly as a child I hated. Didn't like the flavor of them at all, but the memories of those dinners and the togetherness with my family are very strongly linked to this flavor, to the point where now as an adult I actually go and seek out stuffed peppers because it's a flavor that I have now acquired a taste for, but it is also a flavor that brings back memories of times with my family. And that's really part of the magic of food. Um, a scent, a taste, and it can bring back really strong, intense memories of good times you shared with your family or your significant other. Special meals you had while you were on vacation. If you brought a recipe back from that, if you have that particular food again, it very strongly is linked to memories, and that's part of what my cookbook I've written is about the memories that go along with the food that I've included in there. It has my own original recipes in there, but it also has family recipes. That's what it started out as, is the log of my family recipes and the memories that went with them. We had a very good cook in our family. She was my paternal great aunt. She was my father's aunt. And she was an extraordinary cook. She was a housewife, and she had a kitchen I still would love to have. It was a gourmet kitchen with a double oven in the wall, which I'd never seen before or even heard of. She had a gigantic oven um, and cooktop that she had. It was a 6-burner stove. She had a giant utility sink in her kitchen, lots and lots of counter space. And the gathered extended family would always go to her house for the holiday meals, so Easter and Thanksgiving and Christmas. And she would start cooking and cook for the entire week. She would make every bread roll, every piece of bread. She made all of the hors d'oeuvres from scratch. She made cheese logs that she made herself. She made, you know, the hot appetizers and the cold ones, dips and little uh, vol au vent um, puff pastry with a filling in it, basically, usually meat or mushroom. And she made every pie under the sun. She'd make 5 or 6 different kinds of pies: regular apple, Dutch apple, cherry pies, pecan, mincemeat, which was always my favorite. And she actually made it with meat in it, which is something that's very rare. These days, what mincemeat is apples and currants and other fruits, and strong seasonings like cloves and cinnamon, and usually alcohol. It's cooked with bourbon, brandy, or rum. My favorite is the rum. I just think that is being a sweeter uh, alcohol. It tends to bring out the sweet and the fruit better. Um, my opinion, of course. Um, so she'd have all of this, and then she'd have, turkey the size of a small child that was perfectly golden brown, and huge amounts of stuffing and mashed potatoes, and another specialty was creamed peas and pearl onions, and that's basically sweet baby peas that most likely were grown in her garden and frozen, along with pearl onions in a white sauce. And everybody's favorite was always represented. So you had like 4 or 5 different vegetables, and it was just this huge table. And she'd have 20 people, sometimes more, show up for these meals, and everybody was stuffed by the time we were done. And it was just, she was such a warm, lovely woman. And she didn't, as far as we know, she didn't ever write her recipes down. She could have after she suddenly died. Uh, no one could find any recipes. I mean, I'd asked her for them. I always helped her cook and clean up afterwards. And because I liked it and I enjoyed her kitchen. And she was more than happy to have me, kneel on top of a chair and wash her dishes for her. So she didn't actually have a dishwasher. And yeah, I do cook like I'm going to feed 20 people. No matter what size of pot I have, I always fill it, usually all the way to the top. So I'm using the small stock pot today. And Andrew will not let me get the ones I really want to get because I could probably cook a small child in one of those. Um, I always asked Aunt Mebs for her recipes, and she always said she was going to pass them down to her daughter. And she got sick suddenly, and she died. And all those recipes are lost. Um, she passed on one written recipe that she gave to my mother, and that was for a side dish where she would take on a hand crank grinder on a courses plate. She would put raw cranberries and whole navel oranges through, grind them up, and then she left the peels on the oranges, and then she would combine that with sugar, and that was the entirety of the dish. But I've seen a lot of people recount that recipe from their grandmothers, their great grandmothers, passed down in their family, and that's a very old recipe. It's very simple. It's not a jellied cranberry or a cooked cranberry. It's actually raw. And that's pretty rare these days. Most of the time you see either the jellied cranberry that's shaped like a can, or you see the whole berried ones, and they tend to be very solid as well. Um, People have been making those, and I actually have a couple different recipes for those, uh, just for interest's sake. And this has not started really cooking yet. It's trying, bless it, but it takes a bit. I need to make sure in this case that the onions are actually sweated to translucence, and they're starting to turn that way around the edges before I put in the broth and the rice. So I've also, as you noticed, have kept the pieces of beef in bigger pieces, because really, who wants to have a soup that has nothing but what pretty much tastes like meat gravel in it, where it's all very finely chopped? If you're going to feed it to a child, I would say that was a good choice, but most adults like to actually chew meat. So put that back on there. Um, so I spent uh, probably a good 25 years now trying to track down recipes. I've tried to find them in old recipe books that I've found. Once the internet really came across and became popular, it began to get a lot easier. People started putting in websites. That's my microphone you can see here that's on my face. Um, People started putting recipes online, and heritage recipes in particular, scanning whole books in. I have found recipes online that are dated from 100 years ago or 120 years ago. And some of the recipes that are passed down in my family, I've managed to find in those books as a common recipe that they just shared. Once upon a time, women got together to do their cooking because it was such a big chore, because they made their own butter. They, had hens for their eggs. They got together, and when they made bread, many hands make uh, light, fast work. So they would all get together and they would communally cook, and they would chatter, and they would share recipes. And so you'd find these recipe books, and they would be handwritten, and there would be notes on the side of whose recipe it was, and variations that other people brought in, and just fascinating things to read. Um, but it's just something that I've managed to reconstruct some of the recipes of my childhood from my Aunt Mebs, but some of them are just gone. Some of the wonderful breads she made, and some of those side dishes and main dishes and pie recipes are just gone. Her recipe for mincemeat is gone. I've never tasted anything like it, and I probably never will again. But I keep searching, um, because those memories that I had of holidays at Aunt Meb's house, she made it all seem so effortless. And that's that's kind of what I aim for, is to give good memories, share my own, and hopefully spur your own memories and your own thoughts on the recipes that you enjoyed as a child or a young person, and help bring back the beloved memories of family who's gone. I am going to now add, I'm going to take a look again. And I've been cooking this, by the way, on medium high, which is a good heat for when you're trying to sear meat and, cook vegetables down, and definitely what you want when you're trying to bring something to a boil. And these are now almost ready. I'm probably a few minutes away from adding the other ingredients, including the rice. So I am going to take and get those other items ready. Now this is going to call for two 28 to 29 ounce cans of tomato sauce, 6 cups of beef broth, and 2 cups of rice, which, as you may not know, pretty much doubles. If you're cooking 2 cups of raw rice, what you're going to end up with is roughly 4 cups of rice. It basically doubles, and it will suck up some of the liquid in this. So it's going to really be a nice thicker soup by the time you account for both the starch that's in it and the fact that the rice is going to suck up a lot of the liquid of the broth. It's going to take about 4 cups out. So having 6 cups of broth in there is not going to be a very brothy soup. I'm going to get that broth ready. And this is is it wafting into your office? This is an unsalted broth. It is already seasoned because when you make your broth, it is you've already got vegetables in it. You start out with, when you make beef broth, for instance, you start out with neck bones and soup bones, and you give them a light rub with some oil, salt and pepper, and you throw that and some carrots and onions and celery onto a like a jelly roll pan. It looks like a cookie sheet, but it has a ridge on it that goes all the way around about 1 inch. And it's made for cooking jelly rolls. And you take a cake and you cake batter and put it through the whole thing, and it comes out, about 1 inch deep, this cake, and then you cover it in jelly and roll it up, which is why it's called a jelly roll. You put that in there in the oven on a high heat, about 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and you actually toast it. So you're toasting the bones, and you are searing the vegetables, roasting them, and giving them a deeper flavor. And then you take and would put that in a stock pot, and usually put in 8 cups or more of water, and put all the vegetables in there. You don't dice them, you put them in there in big form. And along with the meat and the water, you can add some wine to it. And at this point, you add your seasonings, salt and pepper, parsley, basil, if you're going to be doing it with a tomatoey sauce. But otherwise, parsley, sage, and rosemary go on my beef broth. And that then cooks for 6 or 7 or 8 hours to get all of the flavor out of all of that. And then you take and dump all those vegetables and the bones, and you strain that out so that what you're left with is just the broth, which has all of the flavors from the bone and the bone marrow, from the roasted vegetables, and then it has cooked down, so it is a very flavorful, rich, savory broth. And that is just the best way. Then you would take and refrigerate that overnight. And at that point, the seasonings will actually deepen. They call it married. The seasoning will marry with the broth so that every sip you have has that richness through it. And at that point, you can take, and all of the fat will have risen to the top, and refrigerating it, it will have turned into a solid. And you basically just break it up like it was ice and take it out, or take out at least part of it, because fat is flavor. But if you want to remove all of the beef fat that's in it, you can certainly do that and then allow for certain fats to be added back in, with butter as you're cooking various different parts of your soup or your sauce, or oil, or in this case, some of the beef fat from the beef that has been cooking in our stock pot, which I am now going to take and look at again. And it's doing quite nicely. You can smell the seasonings I've got in here. You can smell the onions, obviously. You can smell the beef and the cooking peppers. And the onions, as you can see, they're still whitish, but they have a translucence to them. And that's about the stage you want to be adding your broth and your tomato sauce. It's got a little bit left to cook, but it's going to be cooking for 20 minutes for the rice anyway. So at this point, I'm going to move this slightly to the side, and I am going to add in 6 cups of broth. So if you're getting containers, you're looking at a 32-ounce container and half of another one. So one 32-ounce container and maybe a 16-ounce, 15-ounce can. That's up to you how you want to do it. It wouldn't hurt to have another couple cups in here, but that would definitely make it a more runny broth. And there we go. A little bit more. And to this, I am going to add my tomato sauce. What did I do with there's my can opener. And these are the big honking cans. They are big. This is not the little cans that you see, the little 8-ounce cans. It's 2 of the 15-ounce cans. In this case, it would be 4 of the 15-ounce cans to put in the right amount of tomato sauce. Because when you're making an actual stuffed pepper, it's beef and seasonings and rice, and in a tomato sauce, a thin tomato sauce. It's not very thick and not very much. It's just enough to keep it very wet. And then it's stuffed in a pepper, and the pepper is put in a baking dish, and then that is surrounded with more tomato sauce, and then it's cooked in the oven. And cooked until the rice is done, and cooked until the pepper is tender. So that's one. And my favorite cooking implement, the spatula, has come out. And it's very good at scraping down the inside of containers and the bottom of pots, so that nothing's wasted and nothing gets stuck to the bottom. So it's part spoon, part spatula. Wonderful thing to have in the kitchen for your cooking. So I'm going to continue to move things around here on my side table, which really isn't exciting. It just has all the ingredients on it. I don't really think that would be an edifying view for you all. But another camera to watch things when they're cooking would be awesome, so that we have a view of the cutting board and the cooking. Yeah, right. And again, when you open your cans, inspect them. They shouldn't have bubbliness inside of them. They shouldn't have any darkness inside the rim. They shouldn't have dents near any of the seals, because when you have that, uh, you're running the risk of food poisoning. So always inspect your food and do it before you add it to the rest of the food, because if I had a bad can of tomato sauce, that would make it so all of this would be ruined. All right, so I've now added the two 28-ounce cans of tomato sauce to this, and I'm now going to move this back onto my burner and raise it up onto high, because this needs to be at a full boil before I can add the rice, or it won't cook correctly. So now Waldorf salad is something that I've never had. Hey MPH, how are you doing? Welcome in today. You have joined me as I am making my stuffed pepper soup, which is, and Professor Nils, hey! Welcome in, I'm glad to see you both. I am making my stuffed pepper soup. I have taken 2.5 pounds of ground beef and browned that with parsley, basil, oregano, and some sage, salt, and pepper. And then added a sweet onion and one each, a red, a yellow, and an orange bell pepper. And that is in about a 3/4 inch dice, because you want to have a bigger piece. And that has browned. I've sweated out the onions, and I've just added 6 cups of beef broth and two 28-ounce cans of tomato sauce. Oh, and it also has 2 cups of grape tomatoes, which I've sliced in half. And saying that, I need some more coffee, so I'm going to hydrate. And as you can see, another feature that we have now with being an affiliate, I have my little gold rings that you are amassing just by watching me. And you can actually redeem them for various different things, telling me to straighten up and fly right, telling me to take another sip of my coffee. We have a variety of different things. Up to and including requesting that I cook a recipe. If you have a recipe from your family that you remember and have no idea how it was put together, you know, if I can find out, maybe I'll give that a cook. Or if I've talked about a recipe in the past and you want to see me cook it, you can use your channel points to do that. You can also go to my Discord, and my husband will pop up my Discord for me. You can go to my Discord, and there is stream suggestions where you can say, I really want to see you cook your chicken mushroom chowder you talked about. And you can say that, and any recipes that I've cooked online. Hiya Silvery Frost, how you doing? Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. You can find my recipes that I have cooked online in my Discord in a very clever side room called Stream Recipes. There's also a section where you can put your own recipes if you want to share them. There's also pictures of anything you want to do. And no, husband, I'm not ever going to make hedgehog stew unless you're talking about my stew cooked by me. It is not ever going to be me cooking a hedgehog. First of all, they are lovely little pets, and I don't think it's actually legal. Second of all, how you kill them is very nasty, or at least for the recipes that I've read from hedgehog stew. And yes, it is a real thing. You see it referred to in the second Sherlock Holmes movie starring Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock. They go to France and they are served a hedgehog stew by gypsies. Anyway, so I've got that soup cooking. I did. I gasped and I was kind of shocked and horrified, and I thought, surely this is a joke, but it wasn't. And I'm not going to tell you how they kill the little guys. It's unnecessarily cruel. Okay. I am not sure if I'm hearing boiling. I don't think so, but I'm going to look. Nope, not yet. I have yet to add in 2 cups of rice. My favorite kind of rice to cook is a Calrose rice. It's kind of a plump little rice. It's a white rice. It steams very well. I usually have it with fried rice, or steamed if it's going with various different recipes, and I like it better than the longer grained white. I might as well get started on making the Waldorf salad. So, Waldorf salad is not a salad per se. It is basically a combination of fruits and nuts. So, I have got, there's my small, there is my big measuring cup, and I am going to move my big bowl over into the corner here so that as I get done cutting things up, I can just dump it in there. This is an apple core cutter. You can get them for anywhere from $3 to $10 in places like Walmart. And the recipe calls for 4 apples, and I use a mix partly because it's Christmas and partly because I just like the mix. I am using a Granny Smith apple for one of the apples, and I am using a red Gala apple. Gala apples make very good pies, but then so do Granny Smith's. And if you mix the two of them together, so much the better. Some people peel their apples for this. Most people do not. I'm not going to because it's going to make a pretty color. And my Gala apples are a lot smaller than the others. And as you can see, they're kind of a mixed yellow and red apple. Ew, that has a bruise on it. Don't want that. That one does not. So I am going to use a mix of the 2 apples. And because these are so small, I am going to add a 3rd one in. And because my red grapes are red, I am going to make it a green apple. So I will get a 3rd green apple out. And that one's going to be rejected because it has a wormhole in it. Okay, so I might actually end up having my husband do this. You basically just send it down through your apple, and it sections it up very nicely, gives you a very uniform apple size there. And what you end up with is an apple core that doesn't want to come out, and apple slices that don't want to come out because I didn't lean on it hard enough, mostly because I'm in a seated position. And I'm basically just breaking them off the bottom of the core when I do this. Saves a lot of time and trouble. You have a nice little core plug when you're done, as you can see. And I'm just going to try to now mash that back out in reverse. And you want to be careful because these are blades, so be careful of your fingers. And this then, your whole apple core, just gets thrown away. And these get moved off to the side while you take another apple. And I'm gonna do a red one this time. And put the discard back with the other apples. Woo! Juicy. And push that through. And then pull those apple pieces out. This also makes it so that all of your apple pieces you're going to cut from this are going to be the same size. So it's just a pretty thing. Makes your life a little easier. You used to make a Waldorf salad when you catered. It's been pretty long. Apple, grape, celery, exactly. Apple, grape, celery, some lemon juice, mayonnaise, salt, pepper. Sometimes I put some yogurt in with the mayonnaise as well. So it kind of thins it up. Makes it something perhaps a little more. I didn't see the bruise on that one either. My galas have been beaten around a little bit, it looks like. Okay, so I've got this other gala apple here, and it doesn't want to stand up and be slaughtered. I don't really blame it. It's a bit of a crooked apple. I lack a little leverage because I'm cooking seated, so hope you will excuse me on that. Yep, and walnuts. I've got walnuts here too. I suppose you could put in pecans if you don't like walnuts. Some people don't like the trace of bitterness they have. I find the apples and the grapes offset that very nicely. So I use walnuts. This used to be a very popular salad. Used to see it on a lot of holiday tables. You don't see it so much now. The advantage is you can make this for your holiday table. You can have it, and then afterwards you can take and add some, rotisserie chicken to it, some leftover turkey, and what you've got then, with a little bit more mayonnaise, possibly a touch of mustard, though I wouldn't really advise it, you've got a chicken or turkey salad with fruit in it, which you can put on some lettuce leaves or on a roll, or just eat out of a bowl. You don't have to be too fancy, but it's more of a complete dish then instead of just a fruit side. It's a darn tasty fruit side though. You coming out to steal an apple slice?
No, going out to call the last one.
Okay. Am I taking too long?
No. I just want to see what the difference is when you stood.
Probably with you, quite a bit. Okay, you still have to wiggle it a little bit. Yeah, so it's about the same. Thank you for coring the last apple, honey. My husband often charges what he calls food tax. So if he brings you something, he's going to take a bite of it. Bloody British. Yep, that is the pay that I give my husband. I feed him. So after stream, he gets lots of food. And that's usually welcome. Although he didn't have my vegetarian sandwich. Just left that for me, which was fine. And I'm looking for my paper towel again because my board is very wet. Go ahead, give me giggity. Now, what you want to do here is take your knife and you want to start slicing your apples. And you want to, once again, slice them as similar in size as you can, because it makes for a better appearance, a better bite. Hey Connor, thank you for the raid. Welcome in, raiders. I am Hedgepig, and I am a home chef with 44 years of cooking experience at this month. My birthday is later on in the month, and I'm cooking heritage recipes from my family and my own original recipes. Thank you for the follow, Izzy Black, and Cece Davenport. Thank you for the follow as well. It's nice to see you both. Welcome in. I am making Waldorf Salad at the moment, which is a fruit side dish made with apples and grapes and walnuts and celery, and then a dressing made of mayonnaise and lemon juice and salt and pepper. And then it's tossed together, and I promise that is a lot better than it sounds. Hello Aspie, welcome in. Thank you for the raid and for coming in. I appreciate seeing you all and joining me on your Saturday. Happy Saturday, happy December. And I am making Waldorf salad at the moment, and I have got a pot of my stuffed pepper soup simmering on my hot plate here, and that is made of ground beef and onions, 3 different kinds of bell pepper, red, yellow, and orange. It has a sweet onion in it and grape tomatoes. It's got beef broth, and it has tomato sauce in it. It's got parsley and sage, basil and oregano, salt and pepper, and it is waiting to come to a boil so I can add 2 cups of rice. The recipes for this can be found on my Discord under stream recipes, and you can follow along as I cook or cook later if you decide to, and they stay up there pretty much permanently. And if you'd like to see that, you can go to my Discord, and oh boy, I should have gotten the bigger bowl. Okay, well, that's interesting. You can also find my past cooking on my VOD on my channel, and after 2 weeks you can catch it on YouTube on the Cooking with Hedgepigs YouTube channel. And my poor long-suffering husband is now getting me a bigger bowl to put this together into. I'm sorry, honey, I really thought that this was not going to make this much. Oh, and the Waldorf salad has walnuts in it too. Thank you. Here I have the really big bowl, and apples clinging to the bottom. There you go. Thank you very much, honey. Clearly that was too delicate of a size of dish. I usually completely fill anything that I set out with, so I was trying not to make enough to feed an army. Yes, I know, I failed as usual. Tasty apple. Well, we get our enjoyments wherever we get them, Izzy. You may not be one that's adventurous in the foods you eat, but if you enjoy watching other people cook, more power to you. Now, these apples are going to oxidize a little bit, and that doesn't really affect their flavor. It just makes them have a little bit of a brown appearance. That's part of what the lemon juice is there to do, is to retard that oxidization. The acids in it will do that. I can hear that my soup is simmering, so after I get done cutting the apples, I'm going to add the rice to the soup so that it can start cooking. Once again, I am using a Calrose rice, and that's just a nice plump little semi-long grain rice, and it is raw. Its starches will be added to the soup to help thicken it. And I'm going to use a little bit of hand cleaner because I don't like sticky fingers. So I will turn to the side here so that I don't run this all over my board. And if you like what you see, why don't you go ahead and press the follow button. If you don't like it or don't want to formally follow, that's fine. Welcome in anyway. If you really like us and want to support my stream, you can press the subscribe button, and that's never required. So bear that in mind. It's just a level of support beyond showing up, which is also a wonderful, wonderful support. Okay, I have got this at a boil, and now I need to add 2 cups of rice, assuming I can reach that. And I have got that in our rice keeper. It's just a big plastic container. It's got a top that snaps down. It's got a measuring scoop in it, but I have no idea what its measure is. I've got a 1 cup measure in it. And so there is 1 cup of rice. And here is the 2nd cup of rice. I'm going to give you guys a view of what the Calrose rice looks like. This is the Calrose rice. Get it there. It's not a really long grain rice. It's more fat than long, and it can make very nice sticky rice. It steams beautifully. I put it into my I serve it with my stir fries. I stir fry it into stir-fried rice, which is a recipe upcoming this month. I am going to be making chicken fried rice, and it's very tasty. So I've got the rice in here now, and I'm going to give that a quick stir to combine everything. And then I am going to put it back on my burner and let it cook for about 20 minutes, and then I'll test its doneness. 20 minutes is about what it takes. It's got to come back up to heat again, so I cover it up. And now we go back to my Waldorf salad. And this is going to use one of my favorite ingredients in the world. That would be lemons. Now the lemon adds a little tartness to the dish. It also helps retard the oxidization, which you can start to see coming in at the inside parts of the apple. And I'm going to roll it a little bit first, which bursts. It kind of looks like arborio rice, yes, but it's not. It's Calrose rice. You could use arborio, you could use instant rice if you want to. Go ahead and put brown rice in this if you want, or quinoa if you want to add a little bit more protein, have a little bit less carbs. Quinoa, I believe, would take more cooking, and it's very important that you get the quinoa cooked correctly. Um, can make you sick if you don't. It's a very ancient grain which has just come to the attention, say, in the last 10 years and come into prominence in America at least. Um, I believe it originally comes from Peru, uh, but it's found in a lot of their traditional foods. Now, you would normally use a juicer on this or a um, little boring thing. I'm just going to juice it into my hand, squeeze it into my hand to catch any seeds, and the juice will go through my fingers. So that's fine. And you put the juice of approximately one medium lemon in here. Uh, that's about 2 tablespoons if you use the lemon juice concentrate called like real lemon. Uh, and this will add a little bit of tartness to it. And it will also, like I said, help retard the browning of the vegetables, or the fruits and the celery that you put in here. Boy, this second half is being stubborn. Okay. And like I said, catching the seeds in my hand. And the juice just trickles through my fingers like they're a strainer. The best kitchen tool you have at your disposal is your hands for a lot of different things. For mixing, for kneading, for straining, and tossing. So they're really never completely replaceable. I don't know where my lemon reamer is, so I wasn't going to make my husband try to find it since it disappeared when we moved last. And we have moved frequently. Yep, I got all the juice out of that lemon. So now I am going to take the lemon seeds and the lemon leavings away. And for those who don't know, I share Connor's Uncle Richard's love of lemons, and I eat them. Although I don't eat them the way he does, where he actually eats them whole with the rind. Don't love them that much. So now I'm going to take and give this a bit of a mix so that the lemon juice I poured in here will mix with all of the apples, and that will keep them from completely browning up. All right, get the lemons off my board and give that a little wipe to get the lemon off of there. Thank you for the lurk, Aspie. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate both. We love our lurkers. They can be a little creepy, but you know, if you stop and think about what lurking is. Okay, next thing I am going to add, where did my celery go? I moved it off and put it somewhere stupid, I think. Up, there it is. And I am probably going to have my husband come and give these celery sticks a wash. Let me check my recipe. For Waldorf salad, I've got 3 or 4 medium tart apples. I'm going to be using 3 celery stalks. I need 3 stalks rinsed off really well on the inside. My fingers are sticky again. Ugh. Nothing wrong with washing your hands a lot. It helps with cross-contamination of what you're cooking. And it also, if you are like me and don't like sticky fingers, It'll help keep you from fussing at your fingers the whole time going, ew, sticky. Which my husband thinks is a joke because I often say my fingers are sticky, I need something. All right. So the next thing up is going to be the celery. I've got walnuts. I have lovely big red grapes. Ooh, including some mutants. That's an interesting grape. It kind of looks like a tiny plum. Um, so he's given me 4 of them. And he has already cut off the ends for me because he is a saint. So, I tore it all up with, somewhere around here. So I am going to give these a fairly sizable slice. I cut them in half. These are nice sized celeries. If they were really gigantic, I would probably cut them further than that. It's always nice to have different textures and sizes of things. And I want to be clear too, for those of you that are going EU mayonnaise, this is a light coating of mayonnaise that gets tossed through this. It's only half a cup for all of this, so it's just gonna be just a light coating. It's not gonna be thick like tuna fish. That's really not what it aims to be. So I'm gonna cut these stalks up into a fairly decent size. They're probably a 1/4 inch thick. And I do thank my husband once more for sharpening this blade before stream. It makes it so much nicer. I don't think you can hear it, but if you can, the thumps come from our upstairs neighbor. We have no idea what they're doing. I'm thinking professional wrestling, but it could just be a rambunctious child or someone really getting into an exercise video. They could also be actually throwing furniture around sometimes. It's hard to tell. They are very heavy-footed. I would also like to say that as of last night, we were having problems with our cable, our internet. We and 25,000 people in our area were without cable for a few hours. Some of them, I believe, are still without cable, and we lost it again briefly, and it came back on, but with no idea what happened to it. If we suddenly disappear, it's not that we don't love you, because we do, but it is because whatever caused this issue is not gone. I'm going to cut that because that's a little bit too big of a piece. So we take this and we add this in with our apples. Now I suppose if you had a little red grapes, you could add them whole. That's a bit of a mouthful, so I believe it causes, let's see, it calls for 1½ cups of seedless red grapes. That's walnuts. What am I doing? I am going to bring out my big old measuring cup, and I am going to start denuding a stalk of grapes. So these are pretty big grapes. They can be pretty much any size, but make sure they're seedless. Nobody wants to have to spit seeds anywhere. Well, maybe some kids do, but we try to keep them a little well behaved in our family. But the youngest children we have are getting to be in the 20s. I don't actually have children, neither does my husband. We are happily childless and just devote our time to our pets. That's a icky grape. And I'm gonna get a goodly amount out here on my board to start cutting. And like I said, as you go through these things, keep your eyes open, make sure that they don't have holes in them or bruises that dent in there. Make sure that they are ripe and ready. I can smell and hear the boiling of my soup, so I'm going to turn it back down to medium high. Especially when you're cooking something with starch in it, like noodles or rice, you want to make sure you don't cook it at such a high temperature that you actually burn it to the bottom of your bowl, of your cooking container, which is what happened to the bottom of this one. It's stainless steel. It is not non-stick. But at the time I asked for our cooking pots and pans, I thought there was a fairly good chance that we were going to end up living in a travel trailer which had a gas stove. And that does not mix very well with non-stick. So you put Teflon or something like that on it, you're going to scorch your Teflon. And that's never any fun. It ruins it and you end up having to buy more. So we got stainless steel. Again, nothing wrong with that, but it is sticky, so you have to watch your things, maybe stir them a little bit more, cook them on a less intense heat. Try one of these grapes and see how they taste. Very juicy, lovely sweetness. It will go really well with the tartness of the apples and the slight bitterness, like I said, with the walnuts. And I think I'm getting close to a cup and a half. Once again, this is a proportion thing. If your favorite part of the Waldorf salad is crunching on the grapes, add some more grapes in. Nothing wrong with that. If you like one kind of apple over the other, you could have made it with all green apples, or you could make it with all red apples. You could peel them if you want, or leave them with their peels on for added nutrition and appearance. It's your choice. If you don't like walnuts, you can use pecans. And there's definitely a pecan camp, and definitely there's a pecan camp and a walnut camp. And if you can't have tree nuts at all, you can make this without nuts. It's also fine. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, just having the measuring cup up there gave me an idea of volume, so I wouldn't overdo it with the grapes. I'm just going to cut these little buggers in half and toss them in. And I'm choosing to cut them crosswise instead of lengthwise, just because. Nothing wrong either way. It's just a personal choice. Now, cutting these, you're going to get more juices into it than you would if you'd left them whole. But with the size of some of these grapes, you'd be eating a grape for a mouthful rather than having some apple and celery with it. And this salad is definitely a mixed salad for taste. As I said, you can serve this on your Thanksgiving or Christmas table as a fruit side dish, kind of a fruit salad. And then after you finish with your turkey, you can cut turkey up, maybe add a little bit more mayonnaise to it, and toss it through, and then you have a complete meal in a bowl. Or you can put it on a piece of bread or roll. Serve it on lettuce for a fancy appearance. This is said to have been put together for the first time at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel when a guest wanted a snack late at night and the chef was tired and just put odds and ends together, or at least this is what the myth goes. Nobody really knows for sure, but this salad has been around for a very long time, and it has been loved by generations because, let's face it, it's fancy and snazzy and different than the usual fruit salad where you take canned fruits, maybe mix in a fresh apple, cover it in whipped cream, maybe add some coconut to it and call it an ambrosia salad. And that is just thick with whipped cream or Cool Whip as we usually served it in our house, which comes in tubs and is frozen and you have to thaw it. Nothing wrong with that particular recipe either, but taste change as you grow sometimes. So something a little more naturally sweet and less reliant on a sugared sauce is good. Also, I have to admit, as a diabetic, watching my sugars is a good thing to do. All right, so now I have the walnuts in there, and I am going to reach up here and stir my pot, which I can hear boiling and bubbling, and boy does this smell good. And wow, I've already got rice sticking to the bottom. That's not good. I am going to have to switch from my spatula to the spatula and try to scrape it up off the bottom before it burns. Ah, the fun of live streams. Get off the bottom rice. And as you can see, the rice is starting to puff up. We are probably halfway through the cooking. And I probably should not have trusted this. Ooh, that's hot. I should not have trusted this not to burn to the bottom or stick to the bottom, since that's what this pot in particular does. Yes, we've got a new channel Andrew just created called the Floof channel for pictures of all of your pets, whether they be floofy or not. So feel free to put your reptiles and your, in some cases, arachnid friends. I might not be enthusiastic about the arachnids because I am arachnophobic, but I still would like to see them and share your enthusiasm and love of your pets. And you can certainly put in past pets and present pets, and go ahead and put in pictures of the animals that you love, whether they're yours or not. Okay, so I'm going to put the lid back on that. And here's a surprise. My fingers are sticky from handling the grapes. I am also going to dry down the board. And if this was anything other than fruit and vegetables, I would have washed the board or had it washed more accurately. And I cannot stand to have my fingers sticky, especially with wearing my wedding rings. I don't like the feel of stickiness under the bands. It's just icky. So I'm using a alcohol hand sanitizer. Cuts nicely through grease, but as it turns out from last week, not necessarily well enough. I did have some cross-contamination with my cracker, oddly enough, that I had the shrimp ball on, and ended up reproving to myself why I don't cook pork, and I am allergic. And my husband now says I am not allowed to handle pork anymore without wearing nitrile gloves because I have a latex allergy. Oh, it's fun being me. I'm going to give this a little bit of a mix to get it all combined through. And one of my biggest allergies I have is garlic. If you want to add garlic to the soup, go right ahead. I was asked by Professor Niels last night when he found out I was allergic to garlic. He says, well, do you substitute anything in to replace the garlic in your recipes? No, I don't. I've Up until I was 18, I could eat garlic, and I loved garlic. We had garlic in my brother's spaghetti that he cooked every Friday night. And we had garlic bread that went with it, and garlic bread was my favorite thing in the world. Just loved that taste. And we would get a bake in your oven bread loaf and, slice it open and put butter and garlic in it. And my brother loved baking garlic and smearing it on toast. And it was tasty. I admit, it was very tasty, and I loved garlic. But once I became allergic to it, it started making me pretty sick. And because garlic is in almost everything that is pre-cooked for you, it made it very difficult. My allergy just got worse and worse, and it will actually stop my breathing now. And with a lot of things that you get sick from, you build an aversion to it. So I don't really want to replace the taste of garlic. All I have found that garlic adds to those recipes is garlic. It's just a garlic taste. This calls for, I believe, a cup of walnuts. I'm double checking. This says half a cup of walnuts broken. This is bigger than I would have guessed it was going to be. My apples were bigger than I thought. So I am going to use a full cup instead of a half. But I like the nuts anyway, so. And I am going to give, instead of having these lovely whole walnuts, which are a bit much to have in a bite, I am going to go through and give them a light chopping so that they're in a little bit better pieces. You can just buy a bag of walnut pieces or chopped walnuts in the grocery store. I use them in enough things that I find buying them at Costco in the multiple pound bag where they give me mostly whole walnuts to be more economical. And I'm all for saving money. So that's where I get my walnuts, and that's why they're such lovely, nice whole pieces, because I'm buying whole walnuts and paying a fairly premium price for it. So now I take this and add it in here. So we have got two kinds of apples. We have Gala apples, and we have Granny Smith, and we have walnuts and celery and red grapes. And to this I am going to add a half a cup of mayonnaise. Maybe a little more because this is a bit bigger of a recipe than I thought it was going to be. That's a third. There's a half. I'm going to come in here. Unfortunately, it fits through our giant mayonnaise lid. What was that? Sarah Sparkle Crafts, thank you for the follow. Welcome into the Pigloo. I am going to add the mayonnaise to that. And as you can see, for the size of the bowl, that's not a lot of mayonnaise. Like I said, it's going to make a very light coating. And I would get the spatula out, but I only have the one. How am I doing? I'm doing well, thank you. How are you this Saturday? I am cooking on the hot plate in front of me. I have got a stuffed pepper soup, which is, you can find the recipe for on my Discord, and you'll find it under stream recipes. And it's basically got 2 to 2.5 pounds of hamburger in it. It has a whole sweet onion. It has 3 bell peppers. Okay. And it has cherry tomatoes in it, and 2 cups of uncooked rice, which it's now cooking. And I am making a Waldorf salad because I have been trying to make a holiday dish with every stream. This doesn't necessarily go with the soup, but it does go with your Christmas dinner or Hanukkah or whatever celebration you choose to have. Friendmas, for instance, some people call it. And this is just a lovely alternate fruit salad, maybe a bit more adult in nature than your typical ambrosia salad made with cocktail fruit and in a can, and whipped cream, maybe with some added fresh apple or whatever to it, and coconut in some cases. And this has Granny Smith apples and Gala apples, red grapes, walnuts, celery, the juice of 1 lemon, and a 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. And it will have salt and pepper in it too, because this is not really that sweet of a recipe. It is more of a semi-savory adult fruit salad. Children come to love it too, so that's fine. I am not going to add the salt to it because my mother is going to eat it and she is salt restricted. And then you give that another run through here to get it mixed in. And as you can see, it has just a light coating of the mayonnaise on it. And I'm going to taste it and see if it needs more lemon, because this is a bigger salad than I had been intending to make. So I am going to take a spoon, a big spoon, and see how this tastes. Now, with the fruit in here and the walnuts, your first thing you taste is the sweet of the apples, and there is a creaminess to the mayonnaise, but you don't say, ew, mayonnaise. It's just sort of a creamy flavor. You can taste a little bit of the brightness of the lemon in there, and the sweetness of the grapes. And that mixes in with the crunchiness of the celery, and then you have the slight bitterness of the walnut. And it's just a wonderful salad. This is really yummy. I know that Andrew loves it. My oldest brother, Michael, has made this for us as his Christmas contribution. And that's our first Christmas together in an apartment of our own. We invited my oldest brother over because he was going to be going down the coast with his family, but he was going later because of work considerations, and he was going down after Christmas, so we invited him over for a boneless leg of lamb that I had roasted, and the recipe from my great aunt of the cranberries, and we had uh, creamed peas and pearl onions, and he brought this fruit salad. It was just lovely, and it makes for a pretty good Christmas memory amongst all of the trauma that happened that Christmas, because I was laid off 9 days before Christmas from my job, and that was not such a great memory. But we had a Christmas tree, and we had my brother for company, and we had a lovely meal we'd already planned for. And that was when I learned how to make Waldorf salad, because he told me how to make it. So that's the Waldorf salad done. And now I'm going to check on the soup, which has been boiling away up there. And I really didn't want that sliding down there. Ow! Okay, this pot, very hot. Don't touch it with the back of your hand. I am now going to once more scrape the bottom, and as you can see, the rice has plumped up. It no longer has whiteness. You want to have a taste of this, honey? Tell them what you think of it. I'll get you bits and pieces of all of it. And because he doesn't like to talk on the air, I will tell you what he says. You don't taste mayonnaise, do you? It doesn't really taste like a mayonnaise. It's almost like a yogurt, like a plain yogurt with the lemon when it's mixed in with it. It makes it kind of tart, which is nice. And
Got a nice crunch with the walnuts, and then you chew it through the apples, and
mhm.
you love sweet.
So he says you have the crunch with the walnuts, and then you're chewing through the apples, which gives you sweet against the walnuts, slight bitterness. So it's actually a very well balanced salad. And it's not overwhelmingly sweet, which is always a benefit. I am going to say this soup is probably done. So I'm going to carefully reach around it to turn off the hot plate, which is a very, very hot plate. No, but I can leave it there for now. So it needs to cool down because it's been on high. And I've got everything unstuck from the bottom, and it's not burned, so that's lovely. And this soup, as you can see here, it has the bits of the hamburger and the rice. You can see that's a yellow pepper. It's got onion in it. It's got little tomatoes that are in here, you can see in bits and pieces. There's part of a cooked tomato, and it's cooked down too, adding into the tomato sauce. And I am going to take the other spoon we have out here, and I'm going to give this a taste, make sure it's seasoned correctly and that the rice is done. So I take a little bit of here, and I'm going to take one of the peppers and give this a bit of a blow on because this is hot. Oh yeah, that's nice. It does need salt, but as my mother's going to eat this, I can't add salt to it. It has to be individually salted. You can taste the seasonings within it. The bell pepper is soft but not mushy. The onion is completely cooked through, as you can see from a little bit of this here. There is some onion in it. It's gone completely clear. The hamburger is nice. The rice is cooked through, so it's not gritty in your teeth. And it is just a lovely bit of soup. And I am going to get some of this up to serve into a bowl. Why do I have a white square there on the screen, honey? That's kind of weird. That's way too tiny for me to read. I am mixing this up here, trying to get bits and pieces of everything represented into a bowl here. And now I am going to put that back on the burner and bring the soup over here in a bowl for you all to look at. Get a little bit of, once again, because my mother is going to be eating this and she is allergic to dairy, as I am allergic to, well, so many other things. I can't actually put the cheese that this is called for in the soup. Normally this would have, I believe, half to 3/4 of a cup of grated Parmesan cheese in it, and then more when you serve it. We're just going to have to rely on a bit of a measure that I'm going to stir through here. I'm going to add a couple big spoonfuls and then mix it through. So in this case, I'm going to stir it through here, and with the heat of the soup, this will melt. Not completely, but that's Parmesan for you. And then I am going to serve it with a light dusting of extra Parmesan. You can use mozzarella cheese if you want, or any cheese that strikes your fancy. This is just a little bit more traditional. And I'm going to add a little bit of parsley on the top just because it's pretty for the photograph. And that's our soup. That is our bell pepper soup, which has all the ingredients of a stuffed bell pepper. And that is our finished soup. Our salad that we have here, which you may or may not serve on the side of this, or just have it for a snack or a breakfast in the morning. Add some chicken or turkey to it, and it makes a lovely, complete meal in that case. You can find these recipes online in my Discord. So join the Pigloo if you wish to. It is under a section called Stream Recipes, and they're usually posted the day before. I want to thank everyone who has shown up. I want to thank the people who have followed today. I am going to thank Pirate Ute for his subscription. I am going to thank the only deaf guy, Connor, with his raid of 20 viewers. I am going to thank Cece Davenport for his follow, Izzy Black for her follow, Sarah Sparkles Crafts. I believe you're probably a streamer. Can you give her a shout out, please, honey? Hey, yo, Pirate. I'm glad you're still here. There you go. Go check out Sarah Sparkle's craft if you haven't already. Uh, she actually seems to also play games as well as possibly being a crafting uh, streamer at a guess. I want to thank you all for coming in December and sharing a Saturday afternoon or evening with me. And we are going to find somebody to raid. And I am going to say that we are going to raid Chef Maria, who is a lovely chef in training who plays the long dark and is actually running a tournament right now with prizes for streamers who stream the game. And thank you so much for coming again, and happy holidays to you all. Maybe try my soup. It makes a lot and it's really easy. So the Waldorf salad again, easy, and it's doesn't taste easy. So give it a taste, give it a try, and see me back here on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. And I cannot remember what I'm cooking on Tuesday. Oh yes, on Tuesday I am making chicken parmesan subs and eggplant parmesan subs. So thank you for coming. I hope you stay for the raid.